Given that IPv6 is so much simpler and better, why don't we all just switch to it tomorrow? Well, the problem is there are too many things to switch. Most obviously, there's all that router hardware, whose job is to get packets from one place to another. An IPv6 packet will have a 6 at the beginning instead of a 4, but the router has to know what to do with that 6 and how to interpret the rest of the bits. So the hardware and the software of the routers, that's one of the biggest obstacles. But it's not the only obstacle. We saw that name resolution needs to adapt, and operating system drivers and services need to adapt. They need to construct these packets to send into the network, so they need to know how to construct IPv6 packets instead of IPv4 packets. And then because the shape of these addresses change, given that that was the point, then all sorts of configuration tools need to be adapted to deal with the new style addresses instead of the old style addresses. And even a lot of applications need to change. In our Java code, we were using high enough level abstractions that both IPv6 and IPv4 would work for our code. But in many other pieces of software, especially ones that use the C API more directly, then the different addresses have different shapes, which means different memory layouts to deal with. And then since we can't switch right away, a complicating factor is that we're going to have IPv4 and IPv6 all at the same time. So again, the packet tells us at the beginning whether it should be treated as a v4 or a v6 packet. But all of these pieces in between not only need to be able to deal with IPv6, they need to be able to deal with either one. We saw how that interacts with name resolver protocols. Operating systems have to give you some slightly different hooks, so you can ask some slightly different questions. And even applications sometimes have to deal with this. If you're connecting to a server, you might get an IPv4 and an IPv6 address, but the IPv6 one might not actually work given your network environment. And so sometimes applications have to go out of their way to try both. Mostly the operating system can do that for you and smooth over things, but not always.